Hi and welcome to a Good Chat video. My name's Luci and I'm a qualified coach, counsellor and therapist based in Australia. Today I wanted to talk to you about our feel-good drugs of the brain. This is part of a series that I've been running lately, so if you haven't watched the others, there's a playlist linked up above, so feel free to go and check those out after you've watched this video. Today's video is on endorphins. Endorphins are a natural set of chemicals that are produced in the brain, primarily in the hypothalamus and in the pituitary gland. They're known as the feel-good drug because the release of endorphins is a natural pain reliever and a mood elevator. The well-known runner's high comes from the release of endorphins in the brain when physical exertion takes place, leading to a feeling of elated happiness, and it probably also acts as pain blocking for when those muscles are engaged. As a throwback to when we were primitive hunter-gatherers, that often the case was that long-term running was the difference between starving and eating for our social groups. So the brain came up with ways to make sure that we could continue that kind of endurance over long distances. By releasing endorphins that made us feel good, we could keep running for longer. Endorphins are generally released when we're injured or in pain, and they'll head straight to that spot and they'll make us feel good and relieve that pain. Endorphins are also released as part of the natural reward system of the brain. So whenever you do an action that spikes one of those little reward systems, say for example, gambling, it'll release a little bit of endorphin, it lights up the reward system, and we get that little bit of a natural high. This of course means that it's directly related to habitual behaviours and addictive behaviours, particularly addictions that don't rely on a substance for addiction. So for example, addictive behaviours such as gambling or any other addiction that doesn't involve drugs. Endorphins are very closely related to opioids. In fact, endorphins actually means morphine produced by the body. The fact that it is so close to opioids means that we become very addicted to the feeling very quickly. And so as part of the behaviour reward system of our brain, and the fact that it's related to, as I said, those troublesome addictive behaviours, it means that non-addictive things such as exercise or dieting can actually become addictive under the endorphin system. If we're finding that we're low in endorphins, we may find that natural little highs can lead to addictive behaviours, which can become problematic. But that's not to say that that's what's always going on. It's just that when there's an endorphin imbalance in the body and we start to behave in ways that, because we crave those endorphins naturally, and there's nothing we can do about that, we're built to actually crave them, it means that sometimes we can become unbalanced and we can become addicted to things. The level of endorphins varies from person to person. No two people are likely to have the same level of endorphins or the same receptor levels in their brains. People who have lower endorphin levels are likely to suffer from depression and anxiety much more than those that have elevated levels or regulated levels. People with fibromyalgia are also found to have lower levels of endorphins naturally, although it's not known if this is a causation or a correlation to that fact. But because fibromyalgia is a pain condition, it's not surprising that it is exacerbated by the fact that they have a low level of endorphins in the brain. Low endorphins are also associated with depression and low pain tolerance. This isn't surprising because it is one of the drugs that actually blocks out pain reception in the brain and tells the brain that it's okay. If you don't have much of that chemical in your brain, you're going to get a lot more pain reception and a lot more pain sensitivity than you would normally have with a higher endorphin level. While endorphin research is very much evolving, there does seem to be some very clear connections with endorphins. It seems that endorphins and chronic headaches go hand in hand. Having lower endorphin levels means that you can be susceptible to chronic pain and headaches, although we're not quite sure how that works. It seems that naturally raising endorphin levels, which is actually quite simple to do in a very healthy way, can benefit us across the board with our mental health and our general sense of well-being. Producing endorphins in the body naturally is actually quite easy, and unlike its often illicit cousins, the opioids, it's much less likely to become an addictive or problematic behaviour, and it's certainly a lot less harmful to the body or the mind. The easiest way to raise endorphins almost instantly is to run or take up vigorous activity for at least 20 minutes. Even if you're not somebody that generally engages in activity, you'll find that almost straight away, as soon as the body starts really pumping that blood and the heart rate's up and the lungs are pumping oxygen to the brain and all throughout the rest of the body, that your endorphin levels will start to match that rise in oxygen, and up they go. Of course, endorphins provide a limited time high. They only are engaged by the brain while they're being utilized. So it's not like a feedback loop that we often find with other substances in the brain. Endorphins are only utilized while the immediate activity is going on. So basically, once you stop running, the endorphins will quickly wear off. The high only lasts for as long as it is immediately required by the body. This is one of the reasons why opioids start to lose effectiveness and you need more and more of them to feel the same high. The body will only react to them while the immediate usage is there. As time goes on, the body becomes dependent on them and less receptive to them, and the uptake of them becomes much less in the brain, requiring greater amounts each time. Giving. Donating your time and belongings is a great way to give you a high. Unlike shopping, which can also give you a high, it's much less likely to become an addictive or problematic behaviour. You're also not contributing to consumerist culture, and therefore you're sort of embettering yourself by doing that. Donating your time and your efforts to a charity that you see as worthwhile is going to raise the endorphin levels in your brain naturally and give you that little buzz of a high. And it'll be much greater than the one from shopping because there's no afterwards where you regret a purchase, which is quite often what happens when we get a shopper's high. We get home and we think, why did I get this? I don't even really want it. You really can avoid that by making it a charitable donation or contributing to a charitable cause of your choice. Meditation and yoga. While it seems that these come up an awful lot, same as exercise and our next one, it really does seem that meditation can directly alter the endorphin levels in the brain. We're not really sure how this works, we just know that it does. And it doesn't take much to meditate. All you need is a quiet space, preferably just before bed, and just relax, quiet yourself, and really listen to what's going on the inside. There's no such thing really as finding a big Zen silence. Meditation is more about just a personal reflection time. It's about finding that quiet moment within us where we feel calmer and we feel everything just gets let go and released in that moment. Even if that stress relief is just temporary, it really does change the endorphin levels in our brains. Spicy food. Research suggests that because spicy foods activate the pain receptors in our mouth, this in turn releases endorphins to combat that pain reception. So spicy food to release some endorphins while we're enjoying a good meal. Now, if you're not somebody that enjoys spicy foods, maybe skip that one. Dark chocolate. Now, this one has been really well publicised in the last few years. Dark chocolate contains flavonoids, and those flavonoids are believed to elevate levels of endorphins in the brain when consumed infrequently. So unfortunately, it doesn't mean that you can scarf down a block of chocolate every day. It means that if you sparingly have chocolate, say once or twice a week, that chocolate, particularly, it's got to be 70% dark chocolate. So you're going to have to really get to like really dark chocolate to get the full effect from it. So by enjoying dark chocolate once or twice a week, you're going to release all those endorphins and you're going to feel good about it. So there's a treat that you can have guilt-free. Laughing. It's so good for you on so many levels, and it comes up again and again and again when it comes to holistic approaches to health. Laughing doesn't just release endorphins, it releases all of the feel-good chemicals of the brain. We don't know why it is. We don't actually know what laughing is. There's some suspicion that it may actually be related to the fear response back in the primitive brain. In our evolutionary path, it seems to be that laughing really does bring feel-good solutions. So whenever you feel down or stressed, find something funny and it really will elevate your mood. Sex and masturbation. Yep, not at all surprising that you'll find that on this list, really, is it? They are feel-good activities. They're feel-good activities primarily because of the chemical responses that they have in the brain where they release endorphins. Enough said on that one, I think. Music. Particularly classical music. In fact, nearly all of the studies have been done on classical music, but in the last few years there's been suggestions that any music that makes you feel good is actually going to release endorphins, even if it's heavy death Swedish metal. If you enjoy it, chances are it's going to release endorphins in the brain and you're going to feel good for it. So listen to some music. Massage. Probably for the same reason that sex and masturbation. It probably sends off the exact same triggers that are involved in the preliminary stages of sex and masturbation. Touch from another person tends to raise endorphin levels, particularly because massage, by its essential nature, even when it's a sports massage, your brain still feels somebody else touching you and it goes into overdrive and releases endorphins. It's one of the reasons why it's so effective at relaxing those muscles, is because it's moving endorphins to those sensors and those receptors, so that not only do you feel good, but they actually make you feel more relaxed because they're kicking in with the pain receptors and they're lowering the sensitivity to them. So those muscles really do feel a lot more relaxed, and you do feel good after a massage. Sunlight. All of the feel-good chemicals in the brain are triggered by sunlight. Sunlight isn't just a vitamin D production, it is literally essential for the holistic health of our bodies, from the brain right through to every other system in the body. You need exposure to natural sunlight in at least a moderated amount. Increasingly indoor-based life, particularly over the last year and a half, we're finding less and less time and less excuses to be out in the sun, and we need to reverse that. Everybody should be getting a couple of hours sunlight every day. It's so essential for you. But in this case, it really does help you release endorphins, and you really will feel good. Fragrances. There have been suggestions and some very loosely based studies that have suggested that really pleasant smells like lavender and lemon can release endorphins. Now, whether or not those studies are actually valid that's not up for debate here. I'm just going to roll with them because there's nothing wrong with smelling nice, and if they enhance your mood, chances are they are actually releasing endorphins. So find a fragrance that you like. The introduction of pleasant aromas certainly doesn't hurt anything in the long term, and it does tend to provide a nicer atmosphere and a nicer environment around us immediately. So it's certainly worth a shot. Like chocolate, it's thought that the flavonoids that are found in red wines raise the endorphin levels. But again, this is in moderation, and it's not something to indulge in all the time. You can't just get drunk on red wine and eat a whole heap of chocolate. That's not going to work. Well, it might work, but probably only once. You're just going to raise the tolerance levels to them very quickly. So as an occasional treat, a couple of glasses of red wine or selecting a red wine with dinner can probably help you feel good about that choice very quickly. Just make sure you don't raise your tolerance level and develop an addiction to alcohol at the same time. That could be quite problematic. Hot baths. So this is our last one for the day with this, but hot baths probably trigger the pain receptors in our body as we step into them. So the endorphins naturally rise up quite high. And once our body realizes that we're not in pain, all of those endorphins just kick into their secondary mode and you start to relax a hell of a lot. Now, if you really want to up the game there, you can add some essential oils, some music on in the background, have had a good stretching session after a nice run and a dinner of spicy food, slide into the bath with a glass of red wine, some dark chocolate, and have a good masturbation session for a really good night in. So anyway, thanks for joining me. My name's Lucy. I'm from A Good Chat, and I hope this was a good chat. Don't forget in the meanwhile to check out the other videos, and of course to contact me or to make a booking with A Good Chat Counselling. The links are down below. As with all of our videos, thanks for joining me. I love it when you join. Like and subscribe. You'll see all the stuff on the screen there. Thanks. Bye.